The lantern room. The fog was a living thing that morning, thick as wool, rolling across the sea like breath from something vast and sleeping. Reed Danner steered his small workboat through it by instinct, one hand on the throttle, the other feeling the air. His knuckles were white, though he'd crossed this channel 100 times before. Today felt different. Behind him, three figures rode in silence among the crates and equipment. Dr. Ada Merrin stood near the bow, her windbreaker zipped tight to her throat, a small recorder held close to her lips. She spoke quietly, documenting observations about the weather and visibility, her voice steady but strained. The fog density increases as we near Marrow Point. No natural reason for it. Barometric pressures stable. The lighthouse remains unlit, despite restoration approval last quarter. Jonas Hale, crouched beside a coil of rope, rolled his eyes and muttered, "You're narrating the weather again." His tone wasn't cruel, just tired. A Coast Guard veteran turned freelance technician, he hated the sea's games, the way it swallowed sound, the way it pretended to sleep. Callum Rourke sat farther back, a mug of instant coffee balanced on his knee, stocky, sunburned, unimpressed by the whole affair. "You ask me," he said. "There's a reason no one's fixed this place up in 100 years. You can build a new light tower for half the cost." Ada didn't respond. She'd heard the same argument from half the contractors who'd turned the job down. None of them had her reasons. She wasn't just restoring a lighthouse, she was finishing something her late mentor had begun. He'd spent his life chasing forgotten maritime histories, the ones that sank quietly without ever earning headlines. Marrow Point was his obsession, now it was hers. A faint shape materialized through the fog, a tall silhouette, black iron and glass rising from the rock like a finger pointing at the sky. Marrow Point Light. The last active beam went dark in 1924. Reed throttled down, and the boat drifted close enough for them to hear the slap of waves against the dock's rotting pylons. "End of the line," he said. "Tide's turning soon. I'll wait till it runs back before I leave." "You're staying?" Jonas asked. Reed's eyes flicked toward the lighthouse. "Wouldn't want the fog stranding me mid-channel." Ada caught the flicker in his tone. Fear, or maybe respect. She shut off her recorder and tucked it into her pocket. The dock groaned under their boots as they disembarked. The island was barely an acre. Jagged stone, a scatter of salt-killed grass, a keeper's cottage half collapsed beside the main tower. The air smelled of rust and kelp. Callum whistled. "You sure this is worth saving?" Ada looked up at the lantern room. Even broken, it commanded attention, the crown of a ghost. "Some places remember us better than we remember them," she said. He gave her a sideways look. "That's supposed to mean something." "Maybe later," she said, and started toward the tower. Inside, dust and salt had welded everything together. The main door stuck. Jonas had to shoulder it open. Light cut through the cracks in the boards, thin as blades. The interior smelled of mildew and machine oil. They moved room to room, cataloging, photographing, marking damage. Ada's eyes lingered on the keeper's desk. A journal sat open, the paper swollen and brown at the edges. She brushed it carefully. The last line ended mid-sentence. "The light burns, but no ship answers. I fear it is them who see it now." The pen stroke ended in a long, jagged tear, as if something had dragged the nib off the page. Jonas leaned over her shoulder. "Probably just ran out of ink." She closed the book gently. Or time. From outside came a hollow metallic clang, slow, rhythmic. They froze. Callum peered out a window. "Buoy chain, maybe?" "No buoys this close," Reed said from the doorway. "That sounds from the cliff base." The noise came again, 3 knocks, evenly spaced, then silence. Ada exhaled. "Tide moving through the caverns, that's all." No one argued, but Jonas caught Reed's uneasy glance. The ferryman's hands were still wet from the tiller, yet he wiped them on his coat as if to rid himself of something colder. By afternoon, the crew had stripped the lantern housing and laid new cables. Jonas moved with steady precision, restoring the old generator lines, while Callum reinforced corroded bolts along the spiral stair. Ada photographed every step, her notes clinical but inwardly thrilled. When Jonas gave the signal, she stood beside him at the switch. "Ready?" He shrugged. Let's wake it up. The breaker clicked. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the tower hummed. The filament inside the Fresnel lens flared to life, flooding the room with amber light. Ada's chest tightened. After 100 years, Marrow Point shone again. Down below, Reed stood at the dock, staring up. His mouth moved soundlessly. Callum grinned. Guess it still works. Jonas checked the readouts. Power's clean. She'll run steady through the night. Outside, the fog shifted as if breathing in. The beam knifed across the water, cutting through vapor that swallowed it whole. From somewhere far out to sea came a low answering tone, deep and mournful like a ship's horn. Jonas looked up. You expecting traffic out here? Reed didn't answer. His face had gone gray. You shouldn't have done that, he said. The air went still. Even the gulls were silent. Night fell fast. The fog thickened until the beam barely reached beyond the rocks. The crew gathered in the cottage, eating canned stew by lantern light. Wind rattled the shutters. Tomorrow, Ada said, we'll recalibrate the rotation and run a safety check. After that, phase 1's done. Callum spooned up the last of his meal. What happens then? You sell tickets? It's not a tourist site, she said. It's history. He shrugged. History don't pay. A sound interrupted them. 3 knocks. Everyone froze. It came again, deliberate and hollow, from beneath the floorboards. Jonas stood. That's not the tide. Callum grabbed a flashlight and pried up a loose board. Cold air rose from the gap. The knocking stopped. They waited. Only the hum of the generator carried through the walls. Reed finally spoke. You light something that's been dark this long, you ought to ask why it went out. No one replied. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows like breath. The generator's hum filled the night like a heartbeat. Callum replaced the board, muttering something about bad plumbing, though he knew better. He could feel it, the hollow beneath them, the way the sound had rhythm, intent. The sea was too far below for that. Jonas checked the voltage again, pretending the numbers mattered. All stable, he said. Whatever it was, it's gone. Reed didn't answer. He stood by the window, staring at the dark where the fog pressed thick against the glass. The light above them swept through it, a slow, golden pulse, but each pass felt weaker, as if the fog swallowed more of it every time. Ada wrote quietly in her notebook. Strange phenomena, she murmured. Rhythmic sound from substructure, duration approximately 20 seconds. Jonas snorted. You're still cataloging? That's what we're here for. What we're here for is getting this place functional, not chasing ghost stories. She looked up, meeting his eyes. Then maybe we're here for different reasons. He held her stare a moment, then turned away. I'll check the system in the morning. Sleep came poorly. The cottage groaned under the weight of the fog. Callum woke twice to the sound of dripping water, but the roof was dry. The third time he realized the drip came from under the bed. When he knelt to look, seawater beaded along the floorboards, tiny rivulets spreading like veins. He cursed softly, shoved a towel against it, and lay back down. But the air smelled of brine now, fresh, sharp, wrong. By dawn, the fog was a wall again. Reed stood outside, smoking and staring toward the invisible sea. Jonas joined him, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Any sign of your tide? Reed nodded at the waterline. See that? The tide had left a new mark on the rock, a full meter higher than normal, as if the ocean had reached up in the night. Storm surge? Jonas asked. Not with calm air, Reed said. The sea came in quiet. They watched it for a long time before going back inside. Ada had already returned to the lantern room, her breath fogging in the cold. She examined the massive lens, perfect, clean, untouched. The glass reflected her face in fragments, dozens of tiny versions of her eye. When she adjusted the beam alignment, the fog outside pulsed faintly like it was breathing with her. A figure moved below, Callum hauling equipment up the path. She waved down, but he didn't look up. She frowned. He was walking too steadily for the slope. Then she realized it wasn't him at all. The shape turned slowly, lifting its head. Even through the fog, she saw the glint of something wet, reflective. Not a face, not eyes, just a suggestion of both. She blinked, and it was gone. Footsteps echoed on the stairs behind her. She spun, relief breaking through her chest. Jonas? He appeared in the doorway, breathless. We've got water coming in downstairs, flooding in the basement. How? He shrugged. I thought the same thing. They descended together. The basement was ankle deep already, the floor shimmering with seawater that had no source. It poured from cracks in the foundation, clear and cold. Pipe burst, she said, but her voice was small. There are no pipes, he replied. When she stepped closer, the water rippled, the reflection of the lantern room light shimmered across its surface, and then another light shimmered back, pulsing faintly from below, deeper than the floor. Jonas grabbed her arm. We're sealing this off. They fled the room, slamming the door. The knock came again from beneath their feet, soft this time, like something testing. By noon, Reed had decided he was leaving. The fog will lift by evening, he said. I'll take the boat and call in the coast station. You can come or stay, but that light's not natural. Callum dropped his wrench on the workbench. We're not leaving until we're paid. Reed gave him a long look. You can't pay your way out of a sea that remembers you. Ada stepped between them. We just need one more night. I'll collect the remaining logs, document the anomalies, and we'll leave tomorrow. Jonas said nothing. His hands were trembling. Reed shook his head. Tomorrow's a word you don't get to use out here. Still, he didn't go. He lingered near the dock until dusk, staring into the fog that refused to thin. The sea was glass again, too still. When he finally turned back toward the tower, he stopped. Footprints led up from the tide line. Bare feet, long splayed toes, webbed impressions pressed deep into the wet rock. That night, the generator faltered. The lights dimmed, then surged back, flickering like a heartbeat. Jonas went below to check the system while Ada pored over the keeper's final journal pages by lamplight. They call when it shines, the man had written. The sea is not empty. The light draws them home. She shut the book. Her throat felt tight. From outside came a low, almost human wail carried by the fog. Reed stepped to the window. That's not wind. Callum swore and grabbed a flashlight. I'm checking the lines. Stay inside, Ada said. But he was already at the door, the beam cutting into gray nothing. The air outside was so thick he could barely see 5 feet ahead. The light bounced off the fog, catching glimpses of stone, rope, the glint of wet metal. Hey, he called. Anybody out there? The answer came as a faint splash near the dock. He edged closer. Something floated against the pylons. An old ship's plate, corroded green, the name barely legible, Astor. He turned toward the tower and froze. There was a figure halfway up the stairs, standing motionless. Jonas, he called. The figure tilted its head. The sound of water dripped from somewhere above, slow and steady. Then it stepped forward, and the beam hit its face, pale, stretched, features half-formed, eyes black as tide pools. Callum stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from his hand and vanishing into the mist. He ran. Inside, the door slammed. Something's out there, he gasped. Something's moving. Jonas came up from the basement, dripping wet. The water's rising inside the walls, he said. Not from below, from within. The light flickered again. The beam outside began to rotate slower, grinding through gears that hadn't moved in decades. And then, faintly, through the static hum of the generator, came a voice. It wasn't any of theirs. It spoke through the intercom, wet, hollow, and calm. The light burns. The sea answers. The radio crackled once, then went silent. Reed lunged for it and yanked the plug, as if cutting the power might stop the voice from remembering their names. The generator kept humming. The light above them still swept its slow arc through the fog. Ada whispered, "We have to turn it off." Jonas shook his head. "The switch won't respond. I tried before the water came up." "Then we cut the power at the source." Reed grabbed his jacket. You'll flood the place. The foundation's cracked. Then we drown, Ada said, already moving toward the stairwell. But that light dies first. The climb up felt endless. The fog inside the tower had thickened to a faint mist, tiny droplets glittering in the beam each time it passed the windows. The air tasted metallic. Callum followed, flashlight trembling in his hand. Somewhere below them, something dragged against the stone, slow, scraping, deliberate. They reached the generator room. The floor was slick, reflecting the amber light in rippling patches. Ada waded in up to her calves and pulled open the main fuse housing. "Jonas, help me!" He hesitated only a moment, then plunged in beside her. Reed and Callum waited at the door, listening to the distant clatter from below. "Wires are soaked," Jonas muttered. "If we pull them live, we'll fry." "Then use the breaker," Ada said. He flipped it. Nothing changed. The hum deepened. Beneath the sound, a rhythm began to pulse. 3 slow knocks, then 3 faster. Morse code. Ada recognized it, but her brain refused to translate. She stared at Jonas, voice barely audible. "It's signaling." "What?" "The same pattern from the keeper's log entries. He wrote it here." She pressed a wet page against the wall. "It has answered the light." The floor trembled. The water around them moved against gravity, swelling up the walls, climbing toward the ceiling in a slow spiral. "Out!" Reed shouted. They fled up the stairwell, water chasing their heels, slapping against the iron steps. The beam above flickered faster, erratic, its glow shifting from gold to a cold, pale white. The sound of the ocean outside merged with something else, a chorus of faint voices, all whispering the same word. Return. They burst into the lantern room. The glass panes trembled with every pulse of light. Ada felt the heat of it against her face. It wasn't fire, it was memory made visible, bright and endless. Callum backed against the wall. "We can't shut that off." "We can break it," Ada said. Reed grabbed her wrist. "You break it, it breaks you." That's what he meant. "Who?" "My grandfather. He was on the Aster. Said the sea called to them with the light. Said it promised safe passage home." Reed's voice cracked. "But home was down there." Ada stared at him, the words sinking in like stones. "The light doesn't guide ships, it summons them." The tower shuddered again. From below, glass shattered. The fog forced itself through cracks, curling like fingers. Jonas ripped a metal bar from the railing and swung at the lens. The blow cracked one panel, light bleeding through like molten water. The air screamed, the next swing shattered another. Swing. The beam flickered, then steadied, brighter. Ada shielded her eyes. In the light, she saw movement, figures beyond the glass, dozens of them, standing in the fog where the sea should be. Water streamed from their faces. Some wore fragments of sailor coats, others nothing at all. They stared upward, mouths open, wordless and waiting. Jonas raised the bar again, but his reflection in the lens moved first, striking before he did. The metal slipped from his hands, clanging against the floor. He stumbled back, staring at the reflection that was no longer his. It smiled. Ada stepped between them, grabbed the lantern's core, and pulled. Heat seared her palms. The metal didn't move. She screamed and twisted. Light poured up her arms like liquid flame. Reed dragged her away, but the beam didn't falter. Instead, it bent downward into the sea, cutting through the fog to the depths below. The voices grew louder, layered and human. Callum clutched the wall. "They're coming up!" Outside the windows, shapes rose through the fog like divers breaching the surface, hundreds of them drifting upward, their faces pale and serene. Jonas stumbled to the radio console, slamming the transmit switch. "This is Marrow Point Light. If you see the beam, do not answer. I repeat, do not..." A burst of static swallowed his voice. Then, faintly, another voice came through, identical to his own. "Answer." He stared at the speaker until blood drained from his face. "It's echoing us," he whispered. The tower groaned. Cracks raced up the walls. Water burst through in thin jets. The floor tilted as the rock beneath them shifted. Reed shouted something, but the roar drowned him out. Ada forced herself to her feet, hands blistered. She reached for the last shard of glass still holding the light and pressed her palm against it. Her reflection met her gaze, calm, almost kind. It mouthed something she couldn't hear. Then she pushed. The glass shattered. For a moment, the world went white. When the light died, silence fell. The fog drifted apart in ribbons. The sea below glowed faintly, dozens of points of light flickering deep beneath the surface like stars seen through water. Ada lay on the stairwell landing, coughing up seawater. Jonas crawled beside her, gasping. Reed and Callum clung to the railing, staring at the glow below. Reed whispered, "They've gone home." The water receded slowly, slipping back through the cracks. The fog thinned, revealing the horizon for the first time in days. "Is it over?" Callum asked. Ada pushed herself upright, staring at her burned hands. "Nothing like that ever ends." She turned toward the lantern room. The mechanism still ticked faintly, though the lens was shattered and dark. Jonas limped to the radio. It hissed softly. He keyed it once more, voice hoarse. "If you see the light at Marrow Point, do not answer." Then he shut it off for good. Days later, a Coast Guard cutter found the island half submerged. The beacon was cold, but deep beneath the surface, divers reported a faint illumination, as if a lamp still burned in the sand. They brought up one object, a corroded ship's bell inscribed Astor, and a waterproof recorder. When they played the tape, a woman's voice filled the cabin, calm and distant. "Light remembers what we forget," then silence. Outside, through the cutter's porthole, the sea looked still as glass. For a moment, one of the crew thought he saw something moving in the reflection, another ship gliding far below, its deck lights slowly turning toward them. He blinked, and it was gone. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day.